For me, it was a great experience. It opened my eyes to a lot of different questions that I hadn't thought about before. And so it gave a starting point for dialogue between us and to help improve our relationship.
Yeah, overall it was definitely worth it. I'm really glad we came. And as a teacher starting a new school year, this was like the perfect way to kind of kickstart our year and reinvigorate and refresh and renew and start kind of almost like we're getting married again in a way. You know, it's exciting.
We really enjoyed the workshop in sort of going through the motions of understanding what the specifics of the building blocks of being able to speak about the emotions we were feeling and the difficulties we were struggling with, and being able to sort of work through those to be able to get to a point where we are actually able to have a conversation that may in the past have been very, very difficult for us to have. It became easier for us to be able to discuss those things that were sort of raw.
It was interesting and informative. I enjoyed many of the ways that we learned how to realize when we were in a cycle of fighting or arguing or whatever term you want to use, and then how to get out of that cycle and to continue on our happy path.
It was great. It was great. It was eye-opening to some of the issues that we have as individuals and as a couple. Help us see patterns and figure out ways that we need to improve.
It was a great experience for me. I feel like I'm pretty in tune with myself, and I'm like already a vulnerable person, and I kind of was like, I think I have a lot of this figured out. I didn't, everything wasn't turned on its head, but I still was like, oh, wow, I have so much more to learn. So for me, it was very educational. A few things that stood out for me was to name your cycle or your dance that you get into of negativity. That was really helpful for me to externalize it, to name it, put it aside. The other concept that was really helpful was the different levels of emotion, to go deeper to the real root of your fears and why you're behaving. That was very, very helpful for me.
Yeah, for me, definitely the understanding the root emotions and the need for attachment as human beings, and how much that need drives so much of our personal interactions and personal feelings and weaknesses and behavior and everything.
I think just the principle that really what everyone wants is to feel like their partner is accessible, responsive, and engaged. Those key principles were pretty huge. You know, we've just been here for a day and a half, and it's a lot of information, which is awesome. Like, we'll take some more time to go through it later, but if I can remember that key point, like any discussions that we have where we run into, you know, a conflict or a disagreement, that I can just remember that's the principle, right? Okay, I need to stay accessible, responsive, and engaged. That would be really helpful.
When we're arguing, that we can realize that we're in an argument and get out of it sooner rather than continuing down the path for a few minutes or hour, however long our argument would typically last. Hopefully we can get out of it sooner, approach each other and use some of the kind words we learned and methods we learned to get out of it and have a better relationship, and rather than just be in the cycle of hit and counter punch, punch and counter punch.
I really think that the attachment principle is pretty impressive principle if you really think about why you do what you do and what I think when you know the why behind things, it makes things a lot easier to overcome. And so I think the whole thing on attachment is critical to relationships.
There were so many principles. We're going to have to go back and like actually read them again and again that I can't think of off the top of my head. But the big takeaway for me is that every time we're fighting, it really just comes back to our emotions. I had never thought of it that way, and you taught us kind of how to externalize that.
so that we're not always nitpicky about the things that really don't matter, but we can actually talk about what's really going on underneath and get to know each other better and be closer because of it.
Getting down to the nitty-gritty and the underlying issues, probably the biggest, my biggest takeaway from this.
Well, just the idea that we can overcome some, like, we've had fights in the past where I'm like, it's never going to change. Like, this is never going to go away. This is hopeless. I mean, yeah, we've used that terrible D word before. And honestly, after this weekend, like, I don't think we'll go there again. I think when we start to fight, we'll be able to recognize that really we're in love and we're both just hurting.
For me, it's a foundation. It set up a foundation to build our relationship on going forward.
By identifying patterns and root causes of behavior and emotion, I feel like I'm more capable now of managing situations, managing my behavior, interpreting Molly's behavior, being more understanding, being more helpful to each other as we deal with the stresses of life.
It gave me hope because it gave me tools that helped me feel more in control of our relationship. Not that I want to control you, but just more
That we can be constructive, that we don't have to be driven by the external
or just
events,
tossed
but
around
we
by
can-
craziness of
yeah,
life.
we
That
can
there's
direct. I loved the tools revolving around forgiveness and figuring out how to get over past hurts.
It made me realize that accepting vulnerability is actually a positive thing and can strengthen our relationship. And so I think that'll improve our relationship going forward. Is I'm going to try to be more open to being vulnerable and exposing myself and being closer to him and more real. And there was a part where we talked about learning how to kind of be more compassionate with ourselves. And when we do that, we're by default more compassionate with the people around us. And so that, I think that's going to strengthen our relationship.
For me, opening up new avenues for communication and dialogue, I think that will be the biggest starting point for us and growing forward.
Okay, so the workshop was awesome, and I think it showed us that there's more work to be done. And so we're excited to take the principles that we learned and read through the book and look for a therapist local in our area who would be able to help us go through those conversations more in depth. What I think is really good about it is that the therapy that we've been engaging in up until now is pretty surface. It's really based in the content of everyday life.
Symptom related.
Yeah, it's really symptom related, and I know that we've been doing symptom related therapy on and off for many years in our marriage. And so I have a hope that if we can get to these more foundational issues, that we can stop looking at the symptoms and that they'll stop happening.
I see it strengthening us specifically, like I said before, but getting out of arguments sooner. And then I did enjoy the intimacy part of the workshop. I hope and I believe that it will strengthen our love for each other and our intimate connection, meaning sex, together more.
And I think that the part I liked best was about being intentional. So I think going forward, I think it's great that it gave us the time that we probably wouldn't have taken to sit down during this workshop and make some intentional goals for our relationship moving forward.
Yeah, just being able to identify what is going on in our relationship and having some plans on how to deal with our feelings, how to support each other. Absolutely. While we were sitting here, we were both talking about different couples, and we thought, oh, we should tell so and so that they ought to check this out. They would like this.
It was really great. So well done.
Yeah, fantastic.
I would highly recommend that particularly men come to this workshop because they can get a better understanding of what it is they're really fighting against. It's a little hard when you're dealing with a situation and what seems to be on the surface a very fight or flight kind of situation, and ultimately what you're really dealing with isn't what your primary instinct is telling you. It's a much more foundational understanding of what it is that the relationship is based on, to give you better tools for understanding how to handle those types of situations, to allow your partner to not feel to feel more like you're actually engaged in a way to move the relationship forward as opposed to take it backward.
And I would totally recommend it because I think that as you go through the exercises in the course that you get an opportunity to express your softer feelings, and also hopefully to see that in your husband, to understand that, just like you said, that the things that you're conflicting about or struggling with in your marriage are not really the things that you're struggling with or conflicting about, and that you can get more empathy and compassion and better connection.
Well, I already have recommended this workshop before to other couples that have been here before, and everyone who's come here has left with, like I said, something to go with going forward and to move forward. And sometimes people are in different paths in their relationship, and no matter where you are, you get to move forward. And I think that's great that there's a workshop designed like that.
Yeah, and as previously stated also that I came partly on a recommendation of a couple that I trust that enjoyed the workshop a lot, and that I believe that I've met Jeremy, and I do believe that the workshop would help our marriage, and I believe it has, and I would recommend to others because I think our marital relations is one thing we hold most dear in our lives, or close to it, if not the most important thing we have in our life.
Yes, 5 stars for anybody struggling, anybody who's just kind of like, we're all right, we're not terrible, and for anybody who's great. I think it's helpful for people on all levels.
Definitely recommend it. It's for the price and the time, it's well worth it.